It is July the 6th, 2024. And if you're noticing something a little different, Olia last week asked me whether or not I could film a live stream in a horizontal picture. And you can. It doesn't recommend it you do it this way, but I'm trying it this way to see what happens. One thing that I noticed right off the bat, I don't see any comments. Are people actually talking? I have to check this out, so bear with me. If you guys are on, say something, because I am not seeing any comments by doing this horizontally. This may be a very quick live stream if I can't see anything here. I'm going to try to bring it up. Oh, there we go. Hi, Stephen. Thank you so much for putting something out there. I can see the... So what happens when I do this in a horizontal format, any sort of messages you guys send, they pop on the screen briefly and then they disappear. Where when I do it in a vertical format, they kind of scroll up the side and I can scroll through them in case I miss them. So good morning, Aaron from Colorado. Thank you so much. So I'm going to have to respond to your messages relatively quickly or they will disappear. Now, I don't know if you put a super chat in, if they stay longer, that's a possibility. I'm not sure. But we're going to give it a try today. So, Olia, this is for you. And hopefully this works out. I know some of you watch it. You're part of the replay gang. You watch it on your TVs, your tablets at a later date too. And this is probably a better format for you because it fills the screen versus having those black lines on either side when I film it in a vertical format. All right, so being July the 6th, 2024, it means it's the first Saturday of the month, which means I'm gonna read the responses I got to my question of the month. We're also gonna have to try to come up with a new one. Oli is on. Hello, hello. We're gonna have to come up with a new question for the month of July. So put your thinking caps on for that to help me out. I kind of have an idea of a question I'd like to ask, but I like to hear your suggestions too, because sometimes they're way better. One of the things that I forgot to do, Stephen in Australia sent me a pack of limericks. Hello, Ida Marie. Oh, hello, Media. You're on. That's good. You just got home. So Media in Finland's on, Olia in Poland, Stephen in Australia, Ida Marie in Washington. So those are some of the people that have sent messages so far. Now, like I was saying, Stephen in Australia, you sent me a pack of limericks to replace the dad jokes that I was getting from Eric. Hello, Charmaine. Welcome from Maine. Aaron in Colorado, of course, is on too. Yeah, Olia's decorations are fantastic. So it was kind of nice to get these cards, and I'm supposed to do them on the Fridays with my incoming mail. I had totally forgot, so I do apologize, Stephen, that when I was grabbing everything to do up the video, I put a pile of limericks in a different section with your contribution for calling all artists. And so let's start with this one. So this is the postcard he sent, and on it he says it's a fairy tale limerick. So it's not going to be very long, so pay attention. It says, Cinderella can't go to the palace, for her sisters are too full of malice. Fairy tale godmother has dreams like no other, although her first name isn't Alice. Hello, Mark Sutton. Mark, did you get your parcel yet? This is driving me nuts that you haven't gotten your parcel. Welcome, Joe in India, too. So there's your limerick of the day. It should have been yesterday's. Next Friday, I will continue with the other ones he sent me for the month. So thank you, Olia. Now I know exactly what it does if I do a contribution or a super chat. That's what I want. So thank you for that. So nice little limerick. I really appreciate that. It's a nice addition too to have. So we're going to continue with that. One of the other things that came in is I got this postcard that says, don't you think it's time you started separating out this recycling and compost? The nice Star Wars card that came in. Seeing all the ones. Mark still hasn't got that parcel yet. Makes me think that when I do giveaways, they should be smaller, condensed into an envelope rather than a package. Or if I do it in a package, it's got to be in some sort of sealed box that's been insured. It's going to cost me a lot more to send, um, because I'm really disappointed you haven't gotten that by now. It's been too long. All right, like I was saying, this one comes from Lisa in Georgia, and it was a response to my question of the month for last month when I asked you for I asked you for your favorite quotes. So she said her favorite quote is, "It's so hard having a good time, even smiling makes my face ache." And that's by Dr. Frankfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. She says she loves the irony in this quote. It makes me smile every time. So thank you, Lisa, for sending that. And the stamps, this one's coming off. Can you guys see what the stamp says? Kind of hidden in there, but it says "more than meets the eyes" with an exclamation mark at the end. So that is for the month of May question. Now, the month of June, I said, what is the most inspirational thing to happen to you? And not everyone says to happen to you. Some of them, Stephen, you'll see, gave an inspirational thing. So, well, thanks, Mark, for continuing to stick with me, even if the parcel hasn't arrived yet. Maybe one day it will. I hope it does. So there were some fun things in that one, too. So speaking of Stephen, he sent this envelope with these nice stamps. And inside says, "I'm not sure all the maps are in the correct proportions." So it's this map of Australia and showing all the different countries that would fit in Australia. He says he notices that Canada isn't in there because Canada is bigger. But he did send this letter. Let me see. Bear with me here. Get all the pages out. So he says, "This month's challenge to give you an inspirational story." So it wasn't really to give me an inspirational story, but have something inspirational happen to you. But I like the idea anyway, so we're going to carry on with it. He says, "I'm not really sure that I have one, but talking to a friend today, she suggested I tell you the story of my time working in the tax office as a tax inspector." Jane in South Carolina checking in. Okay, welcome, Jane. I didn't quite catch that because I was reading here. That's the downside of doing it horizontally. If I missed your quote or missed your thing, you can say it again. That's great. But if I'm reading, I probably won't get to see it because I won't be able to read the screen at the same time. So he says, at one time in his life, he decided with some help from a friend that I needed to change my direction career-wise. I had been working in a mine, but my friend thought that it was a waste of my talents since I had a Bachelor of Arts. So I decided that it might be nice to be a diplomat and travel around the world. As a result, I sat the public service exam and was offered a job as a tax inspector at the tax office. While it wasn't my first choice, I thought it would at least be a change and I could possibly move sideways later. I didn't realize then that was not how it worked. Anyways, I took the job. It was in the tax office, and I spent my days inspecting the accounts of various businesses, making sure that all the employees were correctly registered, that payments were correct, that taxes were being correctly deducted from wages and remitted to the tax office. Needless to say, there was a possibility of raising a fine for any infringement. It wasn't particularly difficult work, but I found that most people made mistakes, some fairly minor, and a few that were major. When I asked why people were making the mistakes they did, I soon found out that most of them were so confused by the requirements that they didn't really know what they were required to do. They had invariably contacted the tax office for help, which only got them more bamboozled. Having worked on the phone line section from time to time, he can understand. As a result of this, I took it upon myself to teach anyone or everyone how to do the job correctly. I would then recommend that no fines be raised at that time because I felt that they were trying to do the right thing. I would, however, suggest that the company was inspected again 3 months later to ensure that they were doing it all correctly. My supervisor got a little frustrated that I didn't seem to be generating much income for the tax office, unlike my colleagues who seemed delighted when they raised a really big fine. Anyways, My mom came over from Queensland for a holiday and to see the family. We were all in Western Australia at the time, so I took a fortnight's holiday that I could show her around Perth. On the day that I returned to work, my supervisor beckoned me over for a chat, and after the initial pleasantries, informed me that there was to be no more Mr. Nice Guy Steve. He told me that the government had run out of money and that all tax inspectors were expected to go out and raise as many fines as big as we could. Usually when raising fines, we would go back 3 months, but I was told that now we should go back 12 months and possibly more. While all my colleagues seemed to be happy, I felt that it was really unethical, told my supervisor not only my feelings, but also that I would not do it. There was a little banter back and forth in which he told me that that was my job, and I told him that was not what I was willing to do, and if necessary, I would resign, a move he thought was a bit melodramatic. He offered me a couple of days to think about it, but I know that I would not change my mind. As a result, I walked straight over to the human resources, handed in my resignation effective immediately, then spent the next 6 months delivering pizzas, trying to sell saucepans door to door, only to discover that it's difficult to be enthusiastic selling things to people who neither really want them nor the means to pay for them. And encyclopedias also door to door. That in itself is another story. Eventually, I fell into teaching English as migrants, which I absolutely loved, and then later offered me the opportunity to travel the world being an unofficial ambassador for Australia while spreading my knowledge. I guess if there's any inspiration to be found in that story, it might be that you should do the job that you love, no matter what it may be, and don't allow yourself to be bullied into doing something against your conscience. Do I regret resigning from the tax office without a plan B? Well, my resigning as I did, I suffered quite a blow financially, but I never felt ashamed of what I was doing, and I had no trouble sleeping that night. So no, I don't regret it. Was it a foolish thing to do? Yes, it probably was, certainly in the eyes of the others. Would I do the same again knowing the consequences? Absolutely. One very great thing I learned from it was that it's amazing how little money you need to live a fulfilling life. So was it an inspirational story? Maybe you be the judge. Well, I think it was a very inspirational story. It tells people that you got to do what your mind says is right. You've got to follow your dreams. And you did just that. And it seems to have worked out well for you in the end. And I'm sure the people on the other end that were benefiting from your advice in the tax office really appreciate that you were upfront. I get the fact that people want to have taxes and pay for things, so that's great. Now, if I missed any of your messages, I know there were some messages going on there. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for whatever you sent. I see that message there. Welcome, Basil in India. So thank you, Steve, for that inspirational story. All right, the next one I have comes from Olia in Poland. So we are doing stories from people that are on right now. Inside, she sent this card, and it is well decorated as you would expect it to be from Olia. Now she says, one day, June 3rd, I was shooting my next video about postcards and I had a little pause. I talked to Charmaine, who's also on here from Maine, and she praised my videos. I thought this wasn't the first time someone had said that my videos were good, but it was in that moment that my eyes lit up and I realized here it is, a source of inspiration. When people like what you're doing, that's the strongest thing that helps you keep going. Rob, you're my source. My source is Charmaine, and my source is my viewers. So thank you that you get inspiration from watching my videos. We all get inspiration from watching yours as well. I certainly have upped my decorating game as a result of seeing some of your methods and using them myself. Yeah, I think we all get inspiration from other people that are sending out positive messages into the world. There's a community here that's very strong, so I think that's fantastic. All right, I've got one more submission, so thank you for everyone else that did it. This one comes from Tasha in Virginia. She sent it on this envelope. And inside she sent this. We got mushrooms. Very nice for Stephen. And she says, let's make sure I've got the right thing here. So this is her answer to the question. It says, Ode to my grandmother. My grandmother came up through the Depression in the 30s and subsequently the wars. Money was scarce, but she always managed to have a fancy dessert at the end of every meal. I remember thinking we were so lucky to have such wonderful endings to our meals, and in fancy glasses too. It wasn't until I was older that I realized Grandma had been taking in an inexpensive Jell-O mix and whipping it up until it was fluffy and could feed more than it was intended. Plus, to cover up the fact that it was just a humble Jell-O, she would serve it in a fluted glass so it looked extra fancy. So she is my inspiration. There is always something to celebrate, and there is always a fancy way to do it, even if you're feeding 10 people dessert with $1. So, once again, another inspirational thing. I love these things. The fact that she got inspiration from her grandmother's frugality and her ability to spread her money to make it go even more. So yeah, that's a lot of inspiration. I know my mother, fabulous cook, she did the same sort of things to feed more bodies with a limited budget sometimes, and I think that comes from people either that are children of the Depression era, or if you have grandparents that are still around from that time frame. Yeah, you learn to do more with less. Things like recycling tea bags, that was something that my mother used to always do too. You dry them out and stuff. Nowadays, you think nothing about chucking away stuff willy-nilly, even buying stuff that you didn't even get to, and it's almost gone bad, so you throw it out anyways. Yeah, there's so much waste now compared to what there used to be. Welcome, Joe from India too. I see that you're on as well. So those are the inspirational stories that came through. There may be others that are traveling that haven't gotten here yet, but I want to thank everyone for playing along. And if you want to continue to play along, we need to have a question for the month of July. So if you have suggestions, let me know. Joe seems to be in a hotel somewhere right now using Wi-Fi. I feel like I'm missing out on parts of the conversation. Maybe that's something I'll have to rewatch and be part of the replay gang myself to go back and read everything that people put in. Joe's in Indonesia. Okay. Traveling for business, pleasure. Something else I wanted to talk about. Oh, you're at the stamp. I saw you did a video recently in there too, so you're still there. Do I have to send out global stamps for worldwide? I have to, if that question was directed to me, I have to use international rate stamps or something that adds up to it. Would I consider making a video showing my collection of 1,000 Shen cards? I could. It'd be a lot of work to try to figure out where they all are, but it is something that's possible. Getting lots of rain in Indonesia. Okay. One thing I wanted to talk about, I'm just refreshing my screen here in the background. I put a poll up recently asking, what do you watch that dad guy to see? Just kind of curious what people, and I gave options of Lego, stamps, post-crossing, festivals, and me. So 52% of you say you watch that dad guy channel for the stamps, 39% are here for post-crossing, 2% are for my festivals, and 7% are here watching me.